So, good evening. I wanted to thank you for the invitation to attend this evening. I'm really honored to be here. This is my first time in your community center here at the Friendship Center, and it's really quite lovely. The energy here is amazing, and the energy in the room tonight is very uplifting. I find that in talking about this issue sometimes, all the times actually, it's very heavy and very hard. So when we find those moments of connecting with each other through song or through sharing or through images and laughter, it really helps me to continue to do what I do, and sometimes it just feels also overwhelming. So I'm going to talk with you today about Walking with Our Sisters and how it came to be. I'm really interested to hear some of the words used by the previous speakers because it resonates with what we're doing with Walking with Our Sisters. I'll just let you know that how the project came to be was very organic, and it continues to be very organic. And what that means is that it's alive. And as it continues to grow and the energy expands, we make the adjustments as the organizers to it. So it grows and we just help it along the way for it to be what it needs to be. It really does have its own energy and it does have its own spirit. So that's how we've been progressing as the tour travels across the country, is we're learning new things along the way as it goes. So as I'm looking back already to the 5 tours that have visited, I can see the emergence of all of the elements of a nation building exercise. And it comes from going back to our Indigenous laws, going back to our ways of being, how we relate with each other, and coming from that place of ceremony and prayer. And that's been the foundational piece throughout the whole project. Even when we have discussions as a national collective, when we talk to the city organizers across the country when they're getting ready, we really try to impart on them the importance of the spiritual element of this project, because it honors our sisters who've gone missing or who've been murdered. And it also honors the living, for the families who come and the friends and the loved ones of these women. So it's very much a very collective experience. You can't describe it as anything but an experience that you just have to go and bear witness and be a part to. So how it started was Christy Belcourt and I met on the internet, not through any, crazy stuff, but through I Will Know More. We started connecting through social media on I Will Know More stuff and having conversations, and we really developed a good relationship that way. So one of the issues that came up very often was the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women, because we thought of it as one of the most devastating impacts of colonialism. Everything that happens, our children being taken to residential schools, the Indian Act, everything, the result of that is our missing and murdered Indigenous women. So we would talk about this and think about, we're tired of hearing these human beings, our sisters, talked about as statistics or brushed off as high-risk people or sex trade workers, all of these labels, and thinking these were women, they were someone's daughter, they were someone's mother, and putting ourselves in that place as Indigenous women who are mothers, who are sisters, who are aunties, and thinking about the living. How can we prevent that? What can we do to make people matter? And so we talked about this often, and there was all this energy around I Will Know More, and everyone wanted to be involved. Everyone wanted to do something. How can we contribute to this greater movement that's happening? So Christy's an artist, and I'm not. So she says to me, what do you think about if I put a project together and asked some of my artist friends if they wanted to submit bands And it'll be to honor the unfinished lives of missing and murdered Indigenous women, and maybe it can be an art show. I said, yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that's a good idea. I can't be, but I'll help you however I can help you. So she's like, okay. So she sends an email to some of her artist friends, and everyone was thrilled. Oh, this is wonderful. This is great. You know, the response was positive. So then she said, I think we need to open this up. So by that time, we had already engaged quite extensively in different areas through social media and started to see the tremendous value that social media can play in all of our efforts. So she says, I'm going to make a Facebook group and I'm just going to put a call out there and I'm going to get everyone here. Anyone and everyone who wants to contribute to this project can. And we'll hope to get 600 pairs of vamps, because at that time that was the official number of missing and murdered Indigenous women. So she puts out the call on social media in July 2012 and gives them a year. So the year comes to pass, and this is what we ended up with. 1,300 artists from around the world that sent in more than 1,700 pairs of vamps. And one of the beautiful things that I started to see in the project when the vamps came to my house to be prepared for the first exhibit was the amount of artistry that we have, the reflection of how all of our Indigenous people and tribes across North America express themselves, the different styles of beading. I started to be able to look at them and say, oh, this is the Mohawk style. This is the Ojibwe style. These strawberries are common to Ojibwe patterns and all of these kinds of things. And people really took this opportunity to express such tremendous love. So one of the things that also started to happen in preparation for all the vamps were beading groups across the country. These also became similar to nation-building exercises, and people don't think of them that way, but that's exactly what they are. You sit together at a table, you drink tea, you bead, you talk, you laugh, and then you go home. But what you're doing is you're growing your community. You're reestablishing those relationships, and that becomes very important, and learning how to start to take care of each other again, and reconnecting and making those connections that we lost all these years. So also part of it is a call was put out for music. 50 artists, singers, songwriters sent in one song, and we have it on a soundtrack. I call it a soundtrack. And it's part of the exhibit. It's not available for public consuming, like it's not on a CD or anything like that, and it won't be anytime soon, because all of the songs, like the vamps, are just on loan to us. We're only taking care of them, so we can't, give them out or share them in any way. So part of the experience inside Walking with Our Sisters is the music. And there's different kinds of music. There's hand drum singing, there's fiddles here. Noble sent in a song, for example, and it's her fiddling. It's very beautiful, and it really contributes to the overall experience. So our Facebook group, when I checked earlier today, is over 14,000 members. And those are from around the world. A lot of people just come because they want to see pictures of the vamps. Because as they come in and they're photographed, Christy will post them so that everyone can see each individual pair of vamps that are coming in. And the people themselves, they're like glued to the group to watch and wait for when their vamp is finally recorded and photographed and they could see it, and everyone comments on it. And it's really a beautiful experience for the artists who contribute to be able to see this. And it's also the place that we go to share all of the photographs of the exhibits. Because one of the things that we feel is very important is that this belongs to everyone, and everyone has access to it. If you can't go and visit it in your city, or it's not coming to your city, you can see what's happening on Facebook. We tell the people in the community, you have to record this, you have to take photographs, you have to share, you have to update, constantly encouraging them to remain engaged for the sake of this community that's growing. So everyone is bearing witness to everything that's happening along way and becoming a part of it that way. So these are the basic elements of walking with our sisters. There's a lot of things that change along the way or that we have to adjust, but there's some things that we insist on as the minimum requirement for each community. One of the beautiful things about this project is we don't ever call anyone to say, hey, we think we should come to your city. It's the communities have to contact us to say, we want you to come to the city. And because what we do with that is it really shows a true intent of the community to want to undertake this work, because it's very serious work. It's a very ceremonial process, and people need to be aware of that and willing to undertake it, because while the exhibit is on, it's a sustained ceremony. So like in Edmonton, it was 10 days of sustained ceremony. And as organizers, it's very hard to do that for that long period of time, to be in a constant state of ceremony. So this is one of the things that we really try to impart to people who phone and say, I want your exhibit to come to Minnesota, and we'll talk about these things with them. So we have the bundle. We treat the VAMs as if they are a bundle, because to us they're very sacred, and we approach them with that reverence. They represent the lives of the women and girls, and also of everyone who contributed to the project. We have eagle staffs that travel with the exhibit as well, and they're also an opportunity for families to further honor their loved ones. Because sometimes people will say, I never heard of this project. If I knew about it, I would have made a pair of VAMs. So we have these eagle staffs, and the idea is one represents for missing women and girls, and the other is for murdered women and girls. And we invite families to simply say, if you want to come and hang a feather to honor your loved one, you can do this. You can put it on the eagle staff, and it becomes part of the exhibit, and you honor your loved one that way. And this has been very powerful for a lot of people. Some who feel that for the first time that they've ever known that their loved one was truly honored as an Indigenous person and as a human being. So it's very therapeutic and healing and safe and sacred. We also have the tobacco. Because it's a part of the ceremony, what we do is how we set up the space is always to walk with the sisters, right? So it's this path, and there's always tobacco at the beginning, and you take a handful and you hold it as you're walking through, and it's like you're holding a prayer for everyone. And when you're done in the space, at the other side, when you're leaving, there's a receptacle there, a box that you put it in. And then at the end of the day, at the end of the exhibit, however the organizers feel it needs to be done, all the tobacco is taken out and offered and given in prayer for everyone who gave the prayers. So most of the ceremonial stuff to do with the bundle is assigned to the keepers. So I was the first keeper outside Christie for Edmonton, and as I mentioned, it was a very heavy responsibility to bear, because I could feel them when all of the boxes arrived at my house through Canada Post, and the post office lady is loading them into my house, and she's talking to me about this because she'd already delivered these huge carpets to my place and all these other things getting ready for the exhibit. And when they were finally in my house, I felt this immense responsibility for them. It was a beautiful responsibility that I fully embraced. And it wasn't until after that the exhibit moved on and we took the VAMs to Regina that I felt this reciprocity, this idea of reciprocity. They were gone from my place, and I really felt their absence. And I realized that they were looking after me as much as I was looking after them. And it's really a humbling moment to realize that. And one of the things about walking with our sisters is you have to be really open to the spiritual element of it and pay attention to it and listen to it and trust in it, even if it sounds crazy. And that's the beautiful thing about people like Christie and other people on the National Collective. It's not crazy to them. It's normal. Like when the boxes were in my house, they were in their own room, and I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she says, "Mom, can I go play in the room?" And I said, "No, you can't go in there. There's stuff in there, right?" So she's like all sad and walking away, and I thought about it, and I thought, those ladies and girls, they want a little girl to come there and play. So I said, "Okay, you can." So she took her dolls in there, and she played by herself for a few hours. And she left the dolls, and I was going to go and, say, you got to clean up after yourself. And then I thought, no, they want these toys, they want the dolls, the little girl selves in them really needs this energy. So I was doing all this stuff, and I'm thinking, I know people would think I'm crazy. But I'll phone Christy and I'll tell her about it. And I'll tell the other girls on the National Collective, and they'll be like, "Oh, that was so sweet." You're not crazy and stuff like this. So this has been one of the real strengths, is building this real sisterhood and believing in each other and what each other says, and trust that what they're getting is the right messages. We also have community involvement. It's a very important piece. As I mentioned, the community has to want to undertake the responsibility. And part of the community involvement is having community conversations. So just putting out on social media or signs anywhere, finding a space and saying, "Hey, Toronto, we're having walking with our sisters. Why don't you come and give us your ideas about how you think it should be here, or what kinds of things you want to do around it," and really open it up to regular people, to organizations, to anyone who wants to be a part of what's going on in their area. Volunteers are a big thing. We're all volunteers. Everything that we do is a labor of love. None of us get paid for this stuff. So it's really intense. And for some people in the communities, some of the problems has been around this idea of volunteering and really trying to promote this idea of this mattering, The only reason you want to be involved is because this issue matters to you. These ladies matter to you. Their families matter to you. And that's your only motivation to be here to help. And for the most part, it's been amazing. People come together in the community and understand that this is really something beautiful that they want to be a part of. We've also had partners come in. For example, this Aboriginal company in Edmonton called Mother Earth Essentials thinks this is an incredibly amazing project. So she contacted Christy and said, "Hey Christy, I'm going to make a special blend of tea, and I'm going to call it Walking with Our Sisters. And I'll sell it to you only for how much it costs me to make it, and whatever you sell it for could be your profit." So that's what we've been doing, and it's like this beautiful blueberry blend. It's really quite amazing, and it smells good, and it looks really nice. I haven't even opened mine yet because it's just such beautifully packaged and all this kind of stuff. So people come out and they offer things, and you don't ever have to ask, and it's pretty amazing that way. So the project is completely self-sustaining in that there's no government funding, no industry funding. This is our bottom line. We will accept no government funding or industry funding whatsoever. It's been so the tour is stretching for 9 years. This is how much interest we've got from around North America. We started in Edmonton just this past fall, and these are just some of the places in between: Regina, Winnipeg, Parry Sound, Whitehorse, Santa Fe, New Hampshire, with the last exhibit being scheduled for March 2019 in Kenora. So this is how far ahead we're planning. And the schedule is adjusting as we start to become aware that this isn't just an art exhibit, this is a ceremony. We have to double back and contact galleries and say, "This is kind of changing. I don't know if it suits your gallery now." So we have to, readjust plans. So it's always ongoing, the schedule changing and adding. Now that we're getting out there more and more people are calling to say, "We want you to come to our town." So some of the things that we encourage communities to do is have other events. because it's not just about honoring, it's about community. So we have the community conversations that I mentioned, and we've had more than 1,500 people at minimum through each exhibit so far. We also ensure to have youth engagement activities to bring in our young people in a way that's very meaningful, and we consult in our community conversations, about what that looks like for this particular community that we're in that month. In Edmonton, for example, we had a one-day seminar where we brought in some panelists who talked about this issue, so more learning. The media is really starting to pick up on this, and we've been getting some really great coverage, which really helps the overall dialogue and conversation. And it's a growing memorial. It's getting outside of the Banffs to a book that's coming out, a catalog of the Banffs, a commemorative poster, commemorative postcards, and tea. These are some of the ongoing fundraising activities that we're doing. And at the recent exhibit was in Sault Ste. Marie at the Shingwa Residential School, the old residential school. We had a special call out for Banffs to honor and remember the children and the babies and the unborn that never came home from the residential school. And we got 100 more pairs of masks from that will now become part of the exhibit as it continues to travel. And we get gifts along the way, spontaneous gifts. People just come and they say, we want to give you this, like a hand drum. And this one day in Edmonton, this really huge Indian man comes walking in there, and in his arms he had a bundle of sweetgrass this big. He just came, and they were long braids, and he said, I brought this for the exhibit. And we had some non-Indigenous men who came and said, we have a buffalo skull, we want to give it to the exhibit. And when someone came with an eagle fan, so they become part of the bundle. So I'm just going to close with some photos. In Edmonton, our space looked like a lodge, and it felt like a lodge. As you were walking in, it was like all of our sisters were standing in the places where all of the Banffs were. You can just feel them there, and it was really quite stunning. In Regina, they had spatial challenges because of the number of Banffs that there are, so we had to adjust and adapt and use the wall as some of the displays. And here's just some photos of some that were submitted. As I mentioned, the beadwork in some of them is simply amazing. These are a little bit dark, but they're images of Sault Ste. Marie setting up how we post these photos on Facebook so people can see the progression of how things are going. These are some photos from community conversations along the way from different cities, different towns, people who come out and talk about this. Here's some photos from different events. A lady cooking for a feast in Paris-Film. Some ladies in Flin Flon that are making skirts to donate to the exhibit so that women can wear a skirt inside the space if they choose to. Some photos of how the Banffs travel from place to place, the sisterhood of the traveling Banffs, as we call it. And these are some of the baby Banffs that were sent in. And that's how, you know, wow.